The Galactic Council chamber was quiet. Too quiet, Ambassador Eliane Rey stood at the center of the room, her human face calm and unreadable. Around her, thousands of eyes from dozens of species watched, waiting for her to speak. The room, usually filled with sound chatter, laughter, debate, felt like the vacuum of space. Eliane adjusted the silver pin on her coat, the symbol of Earth's unity. Then she took a breath and spoke with a voice both soft and clear. "Thank you for your years of cooperation," she said. "But as of today, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council." Gasps, murmurs, even a few angry clicks from the insectoid delegates. But Eliane said nothing more. No explanation, no blame. She simply turned, nodded once to her aides, and walked out with silent grace. The human delegation followed her heads. High, step steady. Not a single one looked back. A small alien named Yura, sitting with the student observers, watched the humans leave. She felt something strange in her chest. A quiet sadness. She had always admired humans. She remembered how they helped her people when their sun dimmed. She remembered her human professor who taught her how to think, not just remember. Now they were ... gone. Yura stayed seated as the council buzzed with confusion. Why did they leave? Someone whispered nearby. They've always been unpredictable, another said sharply. Emotional. Maybe someone insulted them. Humans are sensitive.
What?
Yura didn't speak. She simply watched the doorway where Eliane Rey had disappeared. Something told her this wasn't about insult or politics. It was something deeper, something the others didn't see. That night, Yura sat in her room aboard the orbiting student station. She looked out the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of the last human ship. But the stars just blinked silently, as they always had. She opened a message draft on her tablet, unsure of what to write. "Are you still out there?" She stared at the blinking cursor. Then she added, "I miss your stories. I miss how you believed we could all be better. Please come back." But she didn't send it. What good would it do? Earth had cut off all communications. Their embassies had closed. Their ships had left joint missions. Humans had simply ... disappeared. Yura sighed and closed the tablet. She felt alone. It's not just because her professor was gone, but because something warm had left the galaxy. Something she couldn't name. Far away, on a quiet ship drifting in the black between stars, Eliane Rey sat in silence. Her hands were folded on the table. She looked tired, but peaceful. Another ambassador, her friend Juno, sat across from her. "Do you think they'll understand?" Juno asked. Eliane shook her head. "Not now. Maybe not for a long time, but that's not why we did it." "No," Juno said. "We left because we outgrew them." Eliane smiled gently. "No. We left because we hoped they would grow too." Sat in silence for a while, the hum of the ship, the only sound. Outside, a billion stars stretched in every direction. So many worlds. So much still possible. Back on the council station, Yura stood in the garden dome. It was filled with plants from dozens of planets. But the earth tree was gone, removed, no trace left. She reached out and touched the empty soil where it once stood. "I'll remember," she whispered, and in that small whisper, something important was born, a choice, a seed, not of sadness, but of hope. HFY isn't always about war or strength. Sometimes it's about walking away to teach others how to stand. Sometimes humanity changes the universe not by fighting, but by feeling, by hoping, by believing in something better and making others believe, too. And in that quiet, empty space in the garden, the universe began to change, not with noise, but with silence. And from that silence, something new would grow. Yura sat by the large window of her study room, staring out into the stars. The galaxy looked the same. Planets still orbited, lights still sparkled, ships still moved through space. But something inside her felt different, heavier, quieter. Human Professor Hale had left without saying goodbye. So had all the humans. Since their departure from the Galactic Council, things hadn't been the same. Every day, Yura checked the interstellar comes. She hoped for a message from him, a simple word, a line, even a quote from one of his favorite Earth books. But there was nothing. Earth had gone silent. No messages, no trade, no contact, just gone. Yura had once thought the galaxy was full of noise to many voices, to many debates. But now, without humanity, it felt like a beautiful song was. Missing its melody, she remembered the last lesson Professor Hale taught. It was about peace, not the kind written in treaties, but the kind that lives in hearts. Real peace, he had said, comes when we choose to understand before being understood. Yura didn't fully understand it then, but now she did, because she missed understanding. She missed him. On the Galactic Council floor, arguments grew louder with each passing day. Delegates shouted over one another about border rules, trade routes, and scientific disputes. The calm tone that once filled the room had vanished. The humans used to speak lest always listening first. They slowed things down, made people think. Now no one waited. Everyone rushed to be heard, but no one truly listened. One day, as the debates reached a peak, the Viren ambassador stood up. He was an old, slow-speaking being who rarely addressed the room. "I miss the humans," he said simply. The chamber grew quiet. "They made us better," he added. No one argued. For the first time in weeks, silence settled. Yura was walking through the learning dome when she saw a younger student sitting alone, crying. The girl was from a species new to the council. Her planet had recently joined, but now felt lost and unwelcome. "Why are you crying?" Yura asked gently. "They don't care about us," the girl whispered. "The council is too busy arguing." Yura sat beside her and remembered something Professor Hale used to say, "Be the hand you wish someone had given you." So she smiled and offered her hand. "We can care for each other," she said softly. That moment stayed with her. Maybe she couldn't talk to Earth. Maybe Hale was far away. But maybe she could carry something of him with her. Not his voice, but his example. Far across space, on a quiet moon base near Saturn, Hale sat alone in his study. The stars twinkled through the transparent dome. He sipped warm tea and held a message in his hand, Dura's old, unsent message. He had found it in the student archives just before leaving. It had never reached him, but the system had saved it. "I miss your stories," it read. "I miss how you believed we could all be better." He smiled sadly. She had understood, after all. He wondered if she still remembered, if she still carried the hope he tried to give. He couldn't reply, not yet. Earth's silence was a decision, but hope could travel without words. He walked to the communication console and pressed a single button. A signal pulsed out just one word: listening. When the signal reached the Galactic Council, chaos followed. Was it a threat? A warning? Or an invitation? But to Yura, it meant something else. She was in the library when it came through. As soon as she saw the word, she placed a hand on her chest. It felt like someone far away had heard her thoughts. Not with ears, but with heart. Yura didn't send a reply. She didn't know how. But that night she wrote in her journal, "Maybe. He's not gone. No one is ever truly gone if they leave behind something worth carrying." And so the galaxy kept turning. Ships flew, stars burned, and life continued. But in quiet corners, something had changed. A young student helped. A crying stranger. A tired ambassador paused before speaking. A teacher told her class about Earth, not with anger but with love, and out there, somewhere in the dark, a single message echoed: listening. That one word was enough to remind a galaxy. Humanity may have walked away, but they never stopped believing, and neither should we. Yura walked down the long corridor of the Galactic Learning Center. It used to be her favorite place, a place full of voices, stories, and laughter. But now it felt quiet. Too quiet. The classrooms that once echoed with human accents were silent. The science labs where human students once stayed late to build impossible things now stood dark and empty. Even the music room, where Earth songs played softly in the background, had gone quiet. It had been 3 months since humanity left council, and still no one truly understood why. Yura missed Professor Hale every day. It wasn't just her teacher. He was someone who made her believe she could be more than what her species expected. He never laughed at her dreams. He listened. He challenged her. He believed in her. Now he was gone. One day she stood in front of the old classroom where he used to teach. The door was closed. The nameplate was still there, Professor Hale Earth. She reached out, gently touching the metal letters. A soft sadness settled in her heart. She wanted to talk to him. She wanted to tell him about her research, about how the galaxy felt colder without him, but she didn't know how. Even if she sent a message, would he ever hear it? Would he even reply? She didn't know, and that hurt. On the other side of the station, students and delegates were trying to adjust, but they were struggling. Projects once led by human engineers were falling behind. Medical centers missed the calm presence of Earth doctors. Even the art displays looked dull without human colors and stories, in quiet conversations. People began to say what no one wanted to admit. The humans had left a hole, not a physical one, an emotional one. They didn't just bring technology or knowledge. They brought something harder to describe: hope, laughter, dreams. Things that didn't fit into reports, but mattered more than anyone knew. And now, everyone could feel the loss. Back in her room, Yura sat on her bed, a book open on her lap. It was one of Professor Hale's favorite Earth stories, a simple tale about a child who planted a tree in the middle of a desert just to see if something could grow. She read the lines slowly, her eyes wet with tears. The child never saw the tree bloom, but years later, travelers found it. Tall, strong, full of fruit. The story ended with these words: "Even when we walk away, what we leave behind can still grow." Yura closed the book and held it to her chest. Maybe that was what Hallie had done. Maybe. He knew the council wouldn't change through arguments or reports. Maybe he believed they would only change when they felt something missing, and now they did. Maybe that was the plan all along. The next day, Yura went to the shared garden on the top deck. It was where humans used to gather, talk, laugh, drink their strange coffee, and share ideas. She looked around. The Earth's plants had withered. No one had watered them. She knelt by a dry flower bed and began pulling out the dead leaves. Slowly, gently, with care. She didn't know much about gardening, but she remembered Hale once said, "Hope grows where hands are willing." So she planted new seeds, earth seeds. One she had saved in a small pouch as a gift from Hale. She didn't know if they would grow here, but she planted them anyway, because it felt right, because maybe, in this quiet act, someone might notice and remember. Elsewhere on the station, others started doing the same. A singer began playing Earth songs in the empty hall. An engineer repaired an old human-built telescope and aimed it toward Earth. A librarian placed human books at the front of the reading shelves. No one told them to do it. They just did, because the humans had given them something worth keeping alive. Far across the stars, a quiet observatory hidden on one of Saturn's moons, Hale sat in silence. He stared at a live feed from the Galactic Learning Center. Humans had left behind silent monitors, watching not for spying, but for signs. Signs that others still cared. He saw Yura in the garden, planting seeds. He smiled. He whispered to himself, "She understands now." Didn't send a message. Not yet. But he leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and said softly, "Hope lives." And in that quiet moment, across a galaxy full of stars, one small thing began to grow. The Galactic Council used to be a place of balance. Arguments happened, of course, but they were followed by handshakes, peaceful talks, and smiles, especially when the humans were there. Now things had changed. Without Earth's delegates in the chamber, the energy felt different. Cold, quick, tense. Yura sat high above in the student gallery, watching the newest meeting. Two powerful empires were shouting over a simple trade route. Voices grew louder. Accusations flew across the floor. The chairperson tried to calm the room. Please, we must discuss, but no one listened. Yura looked around. She remembered how, just a year ago, the human ambassador would have stood, waited for silence, and spoken only when calm returned. It had always worked. Somehow the humans didn't just speak, they made others listen. Now, no one had that voice, and it showed. Yura leaned forward, resting her chin on her hands. She felt tired, not from the debate, but from the emptiness. She didn't know how to fix it. She didn't know if anyone did. Later that day, she met her friend Laura in the common study dome. Laura was from the peaceful moons of Thalon. His people had always trusted the humans deeply. They're not coming back, are they? Laura asked softly. I don't know, Yura replied. Staring at the stars through the dome ceiling, Laura picked up a datapad and read a headline aloud. Trade Alliance collapses minor. Worlds left without supplies. One this week, he added. Yura nodded, then whispered, Everything's falling apart. They sat in silence for a while. Finally, Laura looked at her and said, We need them. Yura frowned. But we don't even know how to reach them, maybe. Not directly, Laura said. But maybe we can show them something worth returning to. Yura raised her eyes. She hadn't thought of that. Could they? The next morning, Yura did something she hadn't done in weeks. She returned to the garden she had planted. Small. Seeds she buried had started to sprout. Tiny green shoots reached up toward the artificial sunlight. She knelt down and gently touched one. It was soft and delicate, but alive. I can't bring you back, she whispered to the memory of her professor. But I can take care of what you left behind. As she stood up, another student walked by. He paused, then smiled. You brought back the earth garden, he asked. I'm trying, she said. He knelt beside her. Need help? She smiled. Yes, I do. In the following days, something new began to grow. Not just in the soil, but in hearts. Other students joined Yura. One brought water. Another brought sunlight filters. One else brought a small speaker and played old earth songs. The garden slowly became a place of peace again. And as more students joined, so did ideas. What if we start a forum? Laura suggested one evening. A place where anyone can share ideas without politics like the humans used to do. Yura lit up. Space for listening. For stories. For hopes. They called it the Echo Room. Within a week, it was filled with stories from all across the stars. Poems, old songs, lessons learned. Memories of human friends. Some were sad. Some were joyful. All were real. On the outer rim of known space, a lone human ship hovered near a quiet red star. Inside, Hale was still watching. He had heard about the garden now. He saw messages from the Echo Room appearing in his console. It's not sent directly to Earth, but shared across the universal network, for all to read. One caught his eye. Dear whoever is listening, we miss you. Not for what you gave us, but for how you made us feel. You made us feel like we could be more. And now we are trying, not to bring you back, but because you showed us what we could be. If you hear this, thank you. Hale sat back, tears in his eyes. They didn't send threats. They didn't beg. They grew. That's what he had hoped for all along. Back on the station, Yuta received a private message. No name, no signature. Just one sentence. We see you. She stared at it, heart pounding. She didn't know if it was from Earth, but deep inside, she believed it was. And for the first time in months, she smiled not with sadness, but with faith, because maybe reconnection doesn't always begin with answers. Sometimes, it begins with planting something small and waiting with hope. Yura sat at her desk, staring at a blank message screen. The words on it read, To Earth, from Yura. That was all she had so far. Her heart was full, but her hands wouldn't move. It had been months since the humans left. Still no direct message had come from Earth. Just that quiet signal listening. And then, weeks later, another, We see you. She wanted to believe it meant something. That someone on Earth had noticed. That her professor, Hale, had read the stories in the echo room, or seen the new garden. But doubt whispered in her ear. What if it wasn't enough? What if they had moved on? Still, she couldn't stop thinking about them. She missed their kindness, their strange jokes, the way they looked at problems not with fear, but with determination. Humanity had always believed in something more, even when the galaxy didn't understand. And she missed one person most of all, Professor Hale. She wanted to tell him that she hadn't forgotten. She wanted to tell him that his lessons had grown roots, even after he left. But she didn't know how. Outside the student dome, the garden had grown stronger. The earth plants stretched taller now. Some even began to bloom. Red, yellow, and blue flowers filled the space with gentle beauty. It had become a quiet meeting place. No arguing, no shouting, just people sitting together, helping one another, sharing stories from Earth and beyond every few days. Someone would add a new message to a small wooden board beside the garden. They called it the Wall of Whispers. No one claimed the idea. It just started one evening when Lauro pinned up a note that read, "To the humans, we hope you're proud." Since then, the wall had filled with hundreds of messages. "I wish I had said thank you. You believed in us when no one else did. Please come visit, even just for one day. I miss my best friend. His name is Jacob." Still listening, the words were simple, but they carried weight. They were honest. They came from hearts that felt the loss. And across the stars, someone was watching. On a hidden station above Neptune, Professor Hale scrolled through new transmissions. The data wasn't coming from official council channels, but from open networks. The messages were everywhere now. It's quiet and personal, not demands, not politics. Just words from people who remembered. He paused on one. It was a drawing. A child had used crayons to sketch two figures, one human, one alien holding hands in front of stars. The message beneath was short. "Come back, my friend." He closed his eyes. His hands trembled slightly. "We said nothing," he whispered, "but they still heard us." That was the power of humanity's choice. They had walked away not to hurt but to show, to give the galaxy space to grow. And now, that growth was beginning. Not everywhere, but in enough places to matter. Back on the council station, Yuta finally finished her message. She didn't try to be perfect. She just wrote from her heart to Earth's Dahal. "I still don't know why you left, but I think I understand a little more now. When you were here, we all felt safer. Not because you were stronger, but because you believed we could be better. You didn't fix everything, but you reminded us that we could try. The garden is blooming again. Your stories are being shared. We are trying. Every day, I miss you. I hope you're proud." Yurushi sent it through the open network, not knowing if it would reach anyone, but it felt right. And sometimes the act of reaching out is its own kind of healing. In the days that followed, more messages spread across the galaxy. A quiet movement was growing, one not led by power, but by memory. By the human way of doing things, hope, even when unsure, kindness, even when hurt, belief, even when no one else does. A galaxy that once rushed for control was now learning to slow down, to plant, to listen. One evening, Yura sat by the garden watching the stars. Her tablet beeped, a new message, no sender, just a line of Earth poetry. "We left so you could learn to fly. Now, we watch with quiet pride." Her eyes filled with tears. She held the message to her heart. She didn't know if it was Hale, she didn't know if it was Earth, but she knew one thing for certain. They were still with her. Not just in memory, but in every flower that bloomed, in every whisper on the wall, and in every choice made from hope, not fear. Humanity had moved away, but they had never truly left. The garden was beautiful now, where there had once been dry soil and empty space. Flowers from Earth now bloomed in bright colors. Green vines climbed the supports, gentle petals opened each morning, and the scent of hope filled the air. Yura stood in the middle of it all, holding a small watering can. She wasn't alone anymore. Every day, more people came to help.
Some planted new seeds.
Some sang Earth songs. Some just sat quietly with eyes closed, feeling something they couldn't explain. Yura still thought about Professor Hale every day. His voice lived in her memory, so did his kind smile. She didn't know where he was. She didn't know if he ever saw her messages, but she felt him in the garden. She felt him in every kind. Words shared between strangers. She felt him in herself, because she wasn't the same person she was when he left. He had taught her more than lessons. He had taught her how to believe, and now she was teaching others. Across the Galactic Council, change was starting to take root, not from orders, not from force, but from quiet choices made by everyday people in a small medical center. A doctor from Sarananine began using human empathy training, helping frightened patients feel safe. On a science station near the Ringed World, alien researchers revived a paused project that was once led by a human team. They didn't know if it would succeed, but they were inspired to try, and in schools across many planets, children were reading Earth's books, simple stories about love, courage, and dreams. Some said humans left us behind, but others now whispered no. They left us a path. Galactic Council Chamber still held its debates, but the tone had softened. People spoke with more patience. Some even paused before interrupting. The loudest voices grew quieter. The smallest voices grew stronger. At the center of the room where the human delegation used to sit, a new statue had been placed. It was not tall or grand. It showed a human child holding a star in one hand and reaching out with the other. Beneath it, an inscription read, "To those who chose silence, so we could find our voice." One morning, Yuta received a letter. It had no return name, just a symbol, an old Earth symbol for unity, circle with a single dot in the center. Inside, the letter read, "Dear Yura, we have watched with quiet hearts. You did not wait for answers. You planted them. You did not chase power. You grew peace. You did not speak loudly, but your message was heard. This is the legacy of those who believe. We are proud of you. From those who still listen." She held the letter against her chest, her hands shaking gently. It wasn't just about missing someone anymore. It was about carrying them forward, about becoming the hope you once looked for in others. Later that day, Yuta stood before her class of young students. She was now a teacher at the Learning Dome, teaching galactic cooperation and Earth legacy. Her students came from many worlds, small, large, winged, finned, scaled.
Ow.
All eyes were on her. She opened an old book one. Professor Hale had once read to her. It was the story of the desert tree. The child who planted it never saw it grow, but the tree stood tall long after they were gone. She closed the book and looked at her students. "Sometimes," she said softly, "we feel sad when someone we care about leaves. We miss them, want to reach them. But sometimes they leave us something greater than a message. They leave us the chance to become something more." A small student raised a hand like, "They gave us the seed and we grew it." Yura smiled warmly. "Exactly." She paused, then added, "That's what the humans did. And now it's our turn." Far away, in a quiet observatory orbiting Pluto, Hale watched the lesson through an old feed. He didn't speak. He just sat there, smiling, eyes glistening with quiet joy. He had once felt distant, unsure if his students would remember now. He saw that they hadn't just remembered, they had bloomed, and as the stars shimmered outside his window, Hal whispered 3 words that drifted softly into the silence. She made it. Hope does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it takes the shape of a flower in an alien garden. Sometimes it lives in a student who becomes a teacher. And sometimes it travels across stars, not with ships or weapons, but with stories, kindness, and quiet faith. Humanity may have stepped away from the council, but their legacy walked on. Every hand that chose to lift another, and every voice that chose to speak with care, and every heart that chose to hope. Ura stood near the garden, watching soft wind move through the tall flowers. The red blossoms from Earth now swayed alongside vines from distant planets. The garden had become more than a quiet space. It had become a symbol of something lost and something found again. She placed her hand gently on the tree she and her students had planted just last season. It was growing strong, just like them. But deep inside, she still felt a soft sadness. Not all questions had been answered. Not all voices had returned. And the one voice she still missed. The most Professor Hales remained silent. She often wondered, does he think of me the way I think of him? Does he know what his lessons became? Does he still care? Even after everything, that distance between them still hurt. The next day, a message spread across the station like a quiet wave. Unregistered human ship requesting docking at the Galactic Council port. Yura's heart froze. She blinked. Human ship? After all this time, she ran to the viewing dome. Dozens were already gathered. Scientists, students, ambassadors, even the council leaders had come. And then it appeared. Small, clean, simple. A ship of Earth, designed shaped like a tear, of light gliding silently into the dock. No guards. No weapons. Just presence. When the hatch opened, a single person stepped out. A young human woman dressed in light silver robes. Her eyes were calm, her steps gentle. She walked with quiet purpose into the heart of the station. No one stopped her, no. One spoke. It felt like the whole galaxy was holding its breath, inside the council chamber. The woman stood at the same place Elion Ray stood years ago, the day humanity walked away. She didn't bring a speech. She only said 3 words. We are home. There was no applause, no music, just a deep stillness, filled with emotion. Many felt their eyes water. Some covered their hearts. Others simply looked at the human in wonder. Yura stood far behind, frozen. The human woman's voice wasn't Hale's. Her face wasn't familiar. Something in the way she spoke gentle, clear. Bray felt the same. It felt like Earth. It felt like hope. Later that evening, as the stars glowed softly outside, Yura sat alone in the garden. She placed a small lantern by the tree. It was a tradition from her homeworld, used to honor those who were far away. She whispered, "You came back, but I still miss you." Then she heard footsteps. She turned. The human woman from the chamber was standing there. She smiled. "This is a beautiful place." Yura stood. It was inspired by someone from your world. The woman stepped closer, kneeling by a blooming flower. "I know. His name was Hale." Yura's eyes widened. "You knew him?" She nodded. "He was my teacher too. Long ago." "On Earth?" Tears filled Yura's eyes. "He taught me everything I believe in. I never got to say goodbye." The woman looked up. Her voice was soft. "He never forgot you. I read your letters. He read them too." Yura's hands trembled. "He wanted to come," the woman added, "but his time ended quietly. He asked me to return in his place, to finish the story he helped begin." Udo knelt down beside her, covering her face with her hands. "I thought I had lost him forever." The woman placed something in her hand, a small bookmark, old, worn, and simple. On it were the words, "Believe in what blooms after you." Yura held it tightly, her heart warm and aching all at once. She didn't speak. She didn't have to, because something had reconnected across time, across distance, across hearts. The next day, the Galactic Council made an official announcement. The humans have returned not to lead, not to command, but to walk beside us once more. And across the galaxy, a new chapter began. Not because humans were the strongest, not because they were feared, but because they had taught others how to listen, how to care, how to believe. Even in silence, in her classroom, Yura stood before her students. She placed the bookmark inside the Earth storybook and held it up. "This was given to me by someone who came from far away. But the message belongs to all of us," she read aloud. "Believe in what blooms after you," the children smiled. And Yura knew, even though she had once felt distant, even though the silence had hurt, that love had returned. Not just in one person, but in a whole people. in their legacy, in their quiet human hope, and in every heart they had touched across the stars.